Hello, my name is Rain and welcome to my channel where I discuss fantasy Formula 1. F1 is finally back after a long break. It feels like it's been forever, but it's Friday, it's race weekend. In this video, we're going to discuss my team selection video as well as some other things happening on the channel and around F1 in general. So let's just get right into it. Now, before we get into the main part of the video, I just want to talk about what's happening on this channel this weekend, right? So later tonight for the sprint qualifying, I'm doing a sprint qualifying watch along, and then after that discussing the implications of the sprint. I'm going to do this for all of the remaining sprints this year. Why is this important? Well, everything I'm going to say for the rest of this video is speculation, right? The sprint qualifying is going to be the main indicator we get to make our decisions for this weekend, right? Because the deadline is before the sprint. For, the F1 fantasy deadline is before the sprint race tomorrow and not at the sprint qualifying. So we can watch the sprint qualifying. So I'm going to watch it together with you guys. And then after that, we're going to discuss what that actually means. What are the best 2x and 3x options? Should we use the 3x? What transfer should we make? Which C tiers should we prioritize? All of those questions will be answered later tonight. So join for the sprint qualifying, watch along. It's super important. It's probably the best tip I can give you for this weekend, for this entire American Grand Prix, right? Then tomorrow, when the actual deadline is, right? The deadline is before the sprint, so it's Saturday evening. Unfortunately, I'm unavailable Saturday evening, so there's not going to be a regular deadline stream. Instead, I'm doing a pre-deadline stream tomorrow at 1 p.m. for an hour. I'm going to do all the team submissions then in my Discord channel. So if you haven't joined my Discord yet, you should do so. There's a team submission channel. So tomorrow, Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Eastern Standard Time, like European time, I will be doing a shorter 1 hour pre-deadline stream where I'll talk about your teams, go through your team submissions, look at data, stuff like that, any final changes, anything that's been changed or moved from the sprint qualifying decision, and I will be locking my team then on that stream. So my personal team lock will be on that pre-deadline stream from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, right? I unfortunately cannot have a deadline stream running up to the actual deadline on Saturday evening. So that's what's happening on this channel. Sprint qualifying, watch along, and sort of discussion after that, right? Tonight at 11 p.m. And then again, all these times are Central Eastern Standard Time. And then tomorrow, a pre-deadline stream at 1 p.m. And then next week, we're back to normal. There's going to be a deadline stream next Sunday, or next Saturday, sorry, for the Mexican Grand Prix, as well as a couple of videos during the week. So that's what's happening on this channel. Most important tip for this week is to be there for the sprint qualifying. So I'll see you later tonight. Let's get into the main meat of the video. There's still a lot of stuff there, not only discussing my team, but also discussing things happening in and around F1. So let's get to that, and I'll see you later tonight for the stream. Don't miss it. Now, before we discuss anything COTA or my team related, I thought we would spend some time talking about this news that just came out. A bunch of new regulation changes and rules changes came out from the FIA. Most of it was to prepare for the 2026 season. But the main thing that actually goes into effect at in the 2025 season already, so just in a few months' time, is that the fastest lap point will be scrapped in 2025. I don't know if Ricardo caused this. I've seen a lot of mixed response to this, both in terms of the sports related side of it. In my opinion, I think it's a good thing that they're scrapping it. I don't see the point, right? Because I feel like the fastest lap should go to someone who's actually setting a fast lap on track, but just pitting with 1 lap to go to slap on softs to steal the fastest lap, kind of like Ricardo's been doing, kind of like the people in the back of Formula A has been doing, those being in like the 8th place, right? Having a 30-second gap down to Fernando Alonso or Alex Albon or Nico Hülkenberg or whoever is usually in that P9 spot. So just being able to slap on a set of softs on the final lap, I don't think that should constitute a point, to be honest. Now I know this is a thing that's been in the sport for a while, but I do actually agree with this. I think if anything, you should get a point for setting pole, right? Because that actually pits drivers against each other evenly, and the fastest person around the lap starting first. But maybe starting first is enough of an advantage already. You don't need to extend that further. So that's the sports side of it, the F1 side of it. Let's talk the fantasy side of it. This doesn't mean that we're removing the fastest lap from F1 fantasy, right? They could still get that, right? You don't get a point for driver of the day in the F1 championship. That would be nuts. But you still get points for that in F1 fantasy. So they could keep fastest lap in F1 fantasy. But if anything, I just hope that they reduce the points of it, right? I wouldn't mind them keeping fastest lap as a category in F1 fantasy, but I hope with this they reduce it from 10 points down to at least 5, but maybe even something like 3 or 2 points. And I honestly hope that they do that with the driver of the day as well. One thing that this means for F1 fantasy in general is that this is going to force the makers of the game, F1, to make a decision about it. And if they have to make a decision about it, perhaps they will make decisions about other things as well. So I'm expecting that this could be the catalyst for more changes in F1 fantasy, right? Because if nothing had changed with the rules, and if they were keeping the fastest lap points the same in 2025 as it was in 2024, F1 fantasy could get away with not changing the game because nothing has changed. The rules are the same in the actual sport. But now that there is a pretty big change in how points are awarded in the 2025 season, F1 Fantasy are going to have to make a stand for this, right? We've also seen rumors about there being points down to 12th. Discussion about that. There's nothing that has been confirmed yet. There's nothing. It doesn't even. If it were to happen, I would assume it would be from the 2026 season. But they could add that for the 2025 season as well. And in that case, even more so, F1 Fantasy has to go in and look over how the points scored worked. And the main thing I hope with this is that looking at like these positive points being removed, the fastest lap 10-pointer, hopefully the driver of the day 10-pointer, they have to go and look at the negative scores as well and lower them, which is something I've discussed a lot on this channel recently when we've sort of been discussing the impact of the negatives of the game. I've definitely discussed it on stream. I've definitely discussed it in a video previously. So I hope this leads to points changes in F1 Fantasy as well. At least this is an excuse for them to actually go over and look at it. So sports-wise, I think it's fine. You know, I don't think it's the end of the world that they're removing it. But I also see the points of the point of why they shouldn't do it. But it's the decision. It's removed for 2025, and let's hope that it's also changed at least in F1 Fantasy as well. Now, the next bit of news that dropped is around Red Bull, right? Red Bull has admitted that they have a front bib device that exists, but plan agreed with FIA. So, classic Red Bull, throwing stones in a glass house, talking about McLaren's rear wing being cheatsy. And it's, been pointed out by other teams that they had, the Red Bull had a device exploiting a way of lifting and lowering the height of its T-tray. And the FIA revealed that it was imposing a clampdown on the matter. We don't know what this will do for Red Bull's performance, anything like that. They say they haven't been using it to cheat. We don't know if they have. But there was a device in there that they said have just been inactive, but that they were not allowed to have. And now that they've been called out on it, they are going to have to change it, right? So they actually have to change their car. Now, a lot of teams are bringing upgrades. I haven't found a comprehensive list on it. If there is one, we're going to discuss it in my stream later on. But this front bib being removed, like this is an element of the car being removed, right? And that could bring problems, right? It's not guaranteed that it will. It could just be something that they remove and it works better, or it works fine with the upgrades they brought. But this is a sudden change they've had to do. Like, this news just came out like yesterday or 2 days ago. So having to change the car on like in the weekend that they have to change it, when at the time they had to change it, could definitely lead to issues. So all of those Max Verstappen talks and Red Bull being upgrades, will Max Verstappen be able to win? I feel less inclined to take the plunge for a Max Verstappen, fully knowing that would involve me ripping up my entire team to do so. But this is a further sort of deterrent from touching Red Bull or Red Bull the constructor or Max Verstappen, and I'm likely to stick with other assets for my teams. So it's one to monitor. We gotta wait and see. It could be something that pops up with if Red Bull are struggling. It could be something to do with this, or it could turn out we see one practice session and the sprint qualifying, and Red Bull look completely on it, and we have to think about getting Red Bull assets back in again. But I just thought it was worth mentioning because there's been a lot of controversy about it. Another bit of news, again, I just briefly mentioned it, but that is that all of these teams are bringing upgrades, right? Mercedes have confirmed a substantial upgrade package. Ferrari have confirmed a substantial upgrade package. Everyone is confirming a substantial upgrade package. Haas are bringing upgrades. I think Williams are bringing upgrades. I think everyone is bringing upgrades. Red Bull are bringing upgrades. VCarb are bringing upgrades. So the pace of cars, we might have to just sit back and take a gamble on the sprint qualifying. And one thing, if you're sitting there with 6 chips, like all your chips remaining, you have to start using them, right? You have to use something in COTA, I think. But for me and many of you who only really have the 3X remaining as one of your main chips, right? I only have the 3X, the final fix, which can be used in any weekend, and then the autopilot, which again could also theoretically be used in any weekend. All of these changes are beginning to make me a bit nervous in terms of actually using the 3X, right? I think a lot of people will use their 3X in COTA. So I'm beginning to think that could I be different? Could I try and differentiate myself from the norm by using my 3X in Brazil? And the reason I'm thinking this is because what if Mercedes are the fastest? Right, I'm very unlikely to have any Mercedes asset in my team unless I, downgrade to upgrade something else. And I'm going to show some of that in my team selection video. But what if Mercedes just comes up and wins? What if Ferrari are way faster than we expect? And yes, we do have a sprint qualifying to look at it, but we don't get to look at the actual sprint race. So unless there's some obvious upside to using the 3X, such as a Hamilton starting in P17 or P18, getting eliminated in sprint qualifying 1. So, we watch the sprint qualifying, we see that Hamilton starting far back, and we know he has potential to get a lot of points in the sprint race. Unless something like that happens, and imagine the sprint qualifying is just a normal sprint qualifying. You have a McLaren P1, Lando's P1, you have a Charles Leclerc in there, you have Piastri P3, Max Verstappen is P4, then you have Hamilton, then you have Sainz, then you have Russell, then you have Checo P8, and it just looks like a normal sprint qualifying. And we still don't know with all of these upgrades who's actually going to have the best race pace. I feel like that could be an opportunity to wait and use the 3X in Brazil. That gives us, I can look at COTA, I can see the results there, I can look at Mexico, I can see the results there, and then I can play it in Brazil. Because no one's bringing upgrades to Brazil apart from track specific upgrades, right? So this could be, and all of these separate articles I've seen talking about Mercedes upgrades, Ferrari upgrades, are saying that this is likely the last upgrade package for the season. I mean, that makes sense, right? There's only 1-2 week break, and after that, just 3 more races. So for these final 6 races of the season, these are going to be the last upgrades, unless there's track specific ones. So getting 2 races to sort of feel out these upgrades and see if anything has changed, because these upgrades could change a lot. When McLaren brought their upgrades in Miami, they went from being the 4th fastest car to the fastest car by far, right? And Ferrari upgrades have also like just put them back in the mix, right? Mercedes upgrades, they were the fourth fastest, and suddenly they went to one in Silverstone. And Silverstone, they won in Austin, right? The one in Austria, sorry. So I'm using such a powerful ship as the 3X, unless there's such an obvious point, like an obvious, I want Lando Norris because I still think McLaren is the fastest, and he starts P1 in the sprints, and then we have, a Sainz or a Hamilton or one of those drivers being eliminated in SQ1. Like, that's where I think there could be points, and that's obviously where I would jump on the opportunity to use the 3X. But if there isn't such an obvious opportunity for points gain in someone qualifying badly in the sprints, I might just hold off until Brazil, just on the fact that I don't know what race pace is going to be like, and there's only one practice session, so we can't really look at long run pace that reliably, right? So again, if it looks like it's going to be a regular race, I might just use the autopilot or something similar, and hold off. And I don't think that's that bad of a strategy. Another upside with that strategy, let's just quickly go over to my team, right? Another upside with the strategy of waiting on using my 3X is that I would feel better transferring someone like Oscar Piastri out, right? I have 1 million in here, and I've talked previously about how I want to get Liam Lawson in because of his grid penalty in the feature race. So if he qualifies poorly in the sprint as well, I would really want to get Liam Lawson in there. The problem is the only way for me to do that is to downgrade either Oscar Piastri or Ferrari, right? And say I were to downgrade Oscar Piastri to, let's say, another B tier asset like Carlos Sainz, and run like a Ferrari Carlos Sainz combo, and then upgrade Alex Albon to Liam Lawson, and then this would be my team, right? I don't think this team is too bad, but if Carlos Sainz is starting P5 in the sprint or P6 in the sprint, I don't want to use my 3X chip on this. So being able to delay the 3X just to get the Liam Lawson upside now, which I think a lot of 3X users won't have the money to have, right? Because a lot of people are spending all their money on their front two users, and especially if people want Ferrari over something like Mercedes, then fitting Liam Lawson in there is only for the very rich. So I could go for something like this, hope to gain budget, and like if Liam Lawson gets a budget increase here alongside Carlos Sainz getting a 0.3 million increase, then I can just as easily just switch this back to Alex Albon or a Zhou Guanyu, and then get back to like a Charles Leclerc or Oscar Piastri, who's only increasing 0.1 or 0.2 million because they're 8 tiers now. So delaying the 3X gives me the opportunity to play around with getting Liam Lawson in there. Now, this doesn't have to be a Carlos Sainz. It could also be in terms of a downgrade from Ferrari to Mercedes. This also gives me enough money to get Liam Lawson in there, just barely. And this could be good, again, if Mercedes, the Mercedes upgrades look really, really strong. But again, we haven't seen the Mercedes upgrades, so we don't know. And I don't think we'll be able to know if they're truly faster than Ferrari. I mean, for Mercedes versus Ferrari have been a question on our minds for the past couple of races already. Like, is it worth taking a -10 to bring Ferrari in over Mercedes? Who's going to outscore who? They're both still B tiers, mind you. Like, this is likely Ferrari's final race as a B tier at 24.7 million. So the fact that they're both B tier, like, it feels very, very difficult to find which one of these is going to outperform the other. And again, this would be a decent 3X shout, right? If I'm running Mercedes in here instead, to get Liam Lawson in there. But maybe Ferrari looks way better than Mercedes, and then I don't want to sell Ferrari, and I would have to sell Oscar Piastri to get Liam Lawson in there. Am I saying selling Oscar Piastri to get Liam Lawson in there is a good option? Not really, right? But it gives me the option to play around with that idea. But I wouldn't want to use the 3X if I don't have the best of the best drivers available at my budget. So As for what my transfer is likely to be, it's very possible I don't do anything. Like, if Liam Lawson qualifies in P11 in the sprints, I'm very likely to not want to, I very likely won't try and get him in, right? The Liam Lawson shout is specifically if he qualifies poorly in SQ, because he's already going to be starting so far back in the main race. So him starting at the back in both the races makes him such an enticing option. So there's every possibility in the world that I literally roll this, throw away 2 transfers, and keep this exact same team and use my 3x. But again, do we know if McLaren are going to be the fastest with all of these upgrades coming through? I'm not so sure. So for that reason, I might not use the 3x at all. And in that case, in the case of a normal sprint qualifying, I could play around with some switches here, specifically only 2 switches, so that I would still have 3 switches in Mexico. Probably not use the 3 there, and ensure that I have 3 transfers available in Brazil if that's where I'm going to use my 3x. So all of these upgrade news are giving me a bit of cold feet. I'm less likely to use the 3x now than I was before, but again, sprint qualifying is going to change everything. So join me for the watch along. It's later tonight at 11 p.m. Central Eastern Standard Time, so European time. I will be live here on this channel watching the sprint qualifying and discussing what teams are actually looking like the best, if we should use the 3x or not, answering a bunch of questions, and then a stream tomorrow for the pre-deadline stream, shall we say. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later tonight at the sprint qualifying. Don't miss it. Peace.